Hello and welcome to the Master Your Life podcast. This is the podcast where we help you level up your career, level up your relationships, and level up your lifestyle so that you truly get to live your very best life on your terms. So I'm going to get straight into today's podcast episode. And today I'm going to share with you the stories of two powerful women who have inspired me and impacted me to think about my life and what happens in my life through a different lens. And today's title of the episode is really powerful. Change your perspective, change your life. Because if you are open and flexible in your thinking versus having a fixed or rigid mindset, you literally can change the lens through which you see and experience life. So today, I am not only sharing this concept with you and hoping that the concept that I share will change your life, even just a little bit, but I'm also going to be reminding myself of this concept because even after years and years of personal development work and trainings and workshops that I've even given, I still tend to worry about what ifs. And I'll give an example. So at the moment, Nick and I, my fiance and I, we are currently house hunting. And over the weekend, we found this really cute house in Beverly Hills, like literally had a 90210 zip code. I was like, oh my God, Beverly Hills 90210, it's a real thing, you know. But the house, well, first of all, it wasn't perfect, but it was still really good, but it was going to stretch us financially. And my default response was, well, what if I lose my job? Or what if the business slows down? And like, what if, like all these like negative what ifs. And my mother-in-law, who was with us when we were having this conversation, she simply turned around and said to me, Julie, but what if you get a higher paying job? Or what if your business improves and makes more money? And I was like, oh my God, that's so brilliant, right? Because that option was totally available to me at the time. But my default was like, what if like the worst case scenario happens, right? And so my mother-in-law, she is always seeing the glass half full. And this is like across the board, like no matter what happens, she's always seeing the glass half full. And a couple of years ago, Nick was actually really gravely ill with pneumonia and was in the ICU and was actually on a ventilator because his lungs had collapsed and he was on a ventilator for 8 days. And her perspective, my mother-in-law's perspective and attitude was always so positive and rooted in deep faith that everything was going to be all right. And the thing that really concerned us was that the doctors kept on telling us that there was a possibility of brain damage because he was lacking oxygen for a period of time when his lungs collapsed. And so my stomach was in knots 24/7 for 8 days until he was taken off that ventilator because my default was, oh, but what if he does have brain damage and what if he's not okay? And what if, right? And so I saw my mother-in-law in the hospital and we were there together, literally day and night for 8 days. But all of my worries and all of my concerns, she never even considered them to be a possibility. Her perspective on life is always positive and she's always in abundance mode, right? So that whole idea of what if something happened to Nick, she never even contemplated it being a possibility. She never, ever contemplates the what if or the whole idea of living in scarcity, like never. So I have taken a note or a page out of her book and I have to remind myself to approach life and the potential risks or challenges that life presents us with on any given day with her perspective. Because I've seen her be like that oak tree that I've talked about where she just doesn't waver. Things can happen and she's gone through a lot in her life, but she does not waver. You know, she lives in deep faith and she's extremely positive and she always believes that everything happens for a reason. So even when things don't work out the way that she had hoped and believed and wished that they would, her perspective on life is always like, well, it happened for a reason and I may not know the reason now, but it's going to present itself to me. And she's right. It always does. So if you are also inclined to worry about the what ifs, then I hope that this is also a reminder to you that we get to choose which lens we see life through. And we get to choose if we want to see the glass half full or half empty. So I have a question for you. What has been your default? Are you a half full or a half empty kind of person? And generally, if we're honest with ourselves, we'll fall into one or the other category most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. So I want you to think about if you are in that half empty or that what if kind of category, then it's possible that you can start seeing life through a different lens. One like my mother-in-law's, where it's more positive and abundant and always rooted in faith. So another inspirational woman is my hairdresser, and I want to share a little story about her. She was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer in her 30s. And as a self-employed person, she didn't have health insurance that covered cancer treatment at the time. But her perspective and her attitude and her determination to fight this and get over this was so intense that she found a solution, and she landed in the hands of really, really great oncologists and doctors. And after just 1 year of intensive treatment, a double mastectomy and reconstructive surgery, she's now in remission. And this is like unheard of, right? Like stage 4 breast cancer is pretty severe. It's pretty scary. So, she's also a mum. She has 2 incredible little boys, and she has a very supportive husband who helped her through this process. And so when I was talking to her about her cancer journey, she had this amazing attitude that blew me away. She said that a lot of her family members and her friends were saying how unfair it was that this happened to her, and how unfair it was that a young mother would be afflicted this way. And there was a lot of panic and fear and scarcity and worry and guilt around her. But her perspective on her situation was, why not me? And when she said that, I was like, what? What did she, what? Like, what? Like, just what? She said, yeah, why not me? And it was so genuine. And so like, yeah, why not me? Why not me? Why shouldn't it be me? She said, up until that point, she lived a great life. She had a great childhood, a great upbringing, great husband. She had brought 2 incredible kids in the world who she knew that no matter what happened would be loved and taken care of no matter what. So her response of why not, and the sincerity of it, came from a great place of faith and gratitude. I mean, she wasn't thinking about, well, this shouldn't have happened to me and why me and blah, blah, blah. She was like, well, you know what? I've lived a great life. I'm grateful. I have 2 incredible kids. I've got a great husband. He's going to look after them, extended family, all of that. I have nothing to worry about, nothing to fear. However, most people in her situation would probably respond with, well, why me? And throw themselves a pity party. And I think the fact that she had such a great perspective to her health battle, that was what allowed her to heal from stage 4 breast cancer in just over 1 year. And so this taught me, and this reminded me, and I hope it reminds you, that perspective is everything. Every thought we have has an energy field associated with it that can be measured by neuroscientists. And this energy permeates through our entire bodies, causing various physiological effects. And you know what I'm talking about. So let's give you an example. So think about a cause that you are deeply passionate about. And let's just come up with one for today's episode. Let's just think about puppy farming, okay? Puppy farming. Now, without even being there, if you are deeply passionate about abolishing puppy farming, then you will instantly have various thoughts about puppy farming. Maybe you'll have various visions about what puppy farming looks like. And these thoughts will create feelings, and those feelings will create your body to respond. And some examples of those responses could be that your heart rate increases, maybe the muscles in your face, in your hands, in your upper body like start to tighten up and tense up. And you may not be able to think straight because you start to have these emotions of anger and injustice, right? So that's one example of like maybe a negative pathway. But similarly, if you're like me and you love Disneyland, for example, and you start to reminisce about how fun it was and how much joy you felt while being at Disneyland, your thoughts are nostalgic and they're happy and they're joyful, and your feelings are uplifted and your body feels good, and you start to, play back really good memories. And it's all of those feelings and thoughts that create your reality. So it's important to acknowledge this fact and remember that your thoughts create your reality. Your perspective creates your reality. So these two women in my life have experienced really gut-wrenching challenges throughout their entire lives, but they have chosen to stay positive, to think positive, to feel good about their current circumstances, to have a deep faith, and to push any thoughts or feelings of dread and scarcity and fear and lack way, way away. And they focus only on the good. And so these choices have deeply shaped their lives. And more importantly, their choices have deeply shaped the quality of their lives. So I want you to think about, what's the story you're currently telling yourself about your life or a particular challenge that you're currently facing? What's that story? What's that rhetoric? What's the verbiage? What's the dialogue? What's that conversation that you're having silently with yourself day in, day out? And then go a step further and ask yourself, is the story you're telling yourself, is it positive and solution oriented? Or is your perspective falling into the category of, why me? How did this happen to me? It's not fair, right? So there's always like the glass half full, the glass half empty. So if you're in the glass half empty group, there are a few things that you can do daily to start shifting your perspective. And of course, we could talk about this for hours, and there's tons of books and blog posts written about it that I really encourage you to check out if this is something that you know that you need to do. So the first thing is to start living your day in gratitude. And I've talked about gratitude journaling and making sure that you start your day by gratitude journaling, because what this does, it puts your mind and your body into a state of gratitude. So if you start the day like that, it's very difficult to fall out of that. And when you are challenged throughout the day, you can always go back and remind yourself, or even look at your gratitude journal for that particular day or that week, and be very quickly reminded of how much you have to be grateful for and how amazing and blessed and abundant your life actually is, despite the current challenges that you're probably facing. Okay. Secondly, is to always believe and think that the best will happen no matter what. And even if it doesn't, if you still stay in that place, your thoughts are going to create feelings that are good, and those feelings are going to create behaviors and actions that are positive, that propel you towards your goal, right? You are now in control of your destiny. But if you default to the why me, it's not fair, and that victim mentality, you're then at the mercy of everything outside of yourself. You're at the mercy of external circumstances, and that's not what we want here. The third thing is to connect with positive people. Like I said, I've got at least two people in my life that I know and I can remind myself of. And I think, well, what would my mother-in-law do in this situation? Or what would my hairdresser do in this situation? And what would she think? And what would she say, right? So connect yourself with people that are really positive and avoid the negative Debbie Downers. And here's the thing, you don't need 5 or 10 people that are positive in your life. You actually just need one. And I hope that you have at least one person that you know personally that you can connect with or be reminded of when you are faced with a challenge, or when you do see yourself going down that negative path, right? And ask yourself, well, what would X person do, right? What would she say or he say? And if you don't have that person in your inner circle, in your personal world, then find somebody that uplifts you. Like find a podcast or a blog or an author and connect with them, or read their books, read their blog posts, listen to their podcast, and do whatever it takes to be connected to a more positive source to lift you up when you're feeling a little bit down. And the last thing is to remind yourself of how much you already have and how much you've already achieved. And that's basically just focusing on the good in your life, because there's always a ton of good, but we tend to forget that when we're challenged. So it's really important to develop your self-awareness and to identify bad habits that really don't serve you and that don't propel you towards your life's goals. And it's time to consciously decide to change your perspective and think positively and see the best happening for you, not the worst. And always think in abundance, and that things that are going to come to you are going to be bigger and better than they've ever been in the past. Okay. And remember that your subconscious mind, it doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not real. And so your thoughts really do shape and create your destiny. All right. So whatever you're dealing with right now, know that there is always at least two options available to you. One sees new opportunities, positive outcomes, positive change, amazing results. And the other sees a lack of justice, has a victim mentality, and is not focused on solutions, just the problem. And there is little to no change, as the thoughts and the feelings and the actions are created through a place of scarcity, a scarcity perspective. And these are not designed to give you what you really want in life. So change your perspective, change your life. It really is that simple. And to help you change your perspective, I'm going to give my podcast listeners, that's you, access to my signature course. There is a Master Your Life online course that I normally sell on my platform for $197, but I'm actually going to give it to you for free, because I am committed to helping as many people as possible all around the world to live their very best life. I worked so hard and so long on this course that if you are also committed to going through every single video module, and there's videos from me, along with downloads and workbooks and inspirational posters and lots of goodies in there to help you start to reframe and reshape every aspect of your life, then I would love to see you in the course. And I'm going to leave a link to it in the show notes so that you can just go and click on it and you'll be directed directly to the course itself. And if that is not what you want to do right now, if you're just happy listening to the podcast, that's totally fine. But I just please remind you to subscribe and review the podcast wherever you're listening, if it's on one of the 11 apps, or if you're watching on YouTube. Hello, hi, welcome. And once again, I will leave some links in the show notes for you to connect with me directly if you have any questions or comments or feedback on the podcast or the course itself. And you can also connect with me via social media. So I hope you found today's podcast episode helpful. And just very simply remember, if you change your perspective, you can change your life. So I hope to see you next week, and I'm sending you much love, many blessings, and a lot of strength. And I'll see you guys real soon. Bye for now.